Previously in the videos on DVD base, we created a listings tab page where if you clicked on a tree item, it populated a list view. And there's a number of fields in the list view and so on. And then if you clicked on the change select where several items have been selected, it created a subset of the data in the list view that you could then treat as a group in making changes, referred to as the edit list. And I've been using this for a while now, and I discovered I didn't have a capability I really needed. I basically needed to delete a record, and I hadn't put any capability in here for deleting. So I added to the list page a menu item called delete selected. But the real story with delete selected begins with the tree view. If we double click on this and go to the event handler for the selecting tree view item to populate the list view, we basically see it creates a MySQL select statement that's fairly complex. This is the fixed part of it. And then based on the tree finite state machine, it adds some additional clauses to differentially select data. And basically the tree finite state machine is responding to the on and off state of radio buttons and checkboxes so that the user can control what he sees in the list view. And it used to be we had a lot of code down here that populated the list view, but now we just have a statement that takes the SQL statement and assigns it to a memory variable that's global. The G underscore I usually use for global. And then it calls a routine called pop listing for SQL and passes the SQL statement. And pop listing for SQL essentially is the same code that was in the bottom of the event handler for selecting a tree view item. It has a list view item and a list view item dot list view sub item and a data reader, and it basically clears out the list view with the items dot clear, and then it creates a command object based on the SQL, which now is passed as a parameter, and populates MySQL data reader based on execute reader on this command object. And then we go through in a while loop and look at each of the records in the database that got selected by this select statement, and we create a list view line for each of the items, first using the title field for the main item and also populating the tag field for this main item with the DVD ID, which is very critical for later processing that we put the tag item in. And then we create list view sub items for location, genre, scene, and DVD ID, and then add those sub items to the main item via the subitems.add command. And finally, once we've created this entire line of the list view, we use the list view control to do an items.add of this constructed list view item. And once we've done through all the items and populated the list view, we set list edit mode to false. And list edit mode is basically saying we've selected a number of items and created a subgroup of those items that we're going to treat as a group in editing them with that change selected command. Well, the reason we need to encapsulate this functionality, not just because it's good coding practice to do that and very self-documenting and easier to debug, but the fact is we now have two places we want to call this populate listing for SQL with a passed SQL string. and the other place is the newly created menu item delete selected. So, oops, if I double click on this and get to the delete selected event handler, basically what we're doing is checking to see if we're in edit list mode, and if we are, we've got a subset of data and we really don't want to do any deletes on it or anything. But if we aren't, we continue on and get the number of deletes from the number of selected items within the list view. And this means we're going to select items to delete beforehand and then get this count and put it into a local variable. And if the number of deletes is less than 1, clearly we haven't selected anything, which I don't know why we pressed the button in that case. So I just pop up a message box that says you need to select at least one item to be deleted. And if we have selected a number of items, we have a for loop that goes through and up to the number of deleted items we've selected. And it looks at the tag value that we talked about previously that has a DVD ID put in it, and sets that into a local variable called nRecKey. And then this creates a string that previously was called an edit list string, and now we're calling it a delete list string because obviously it's a list for deleting rather than editing. And each of these numbers is separated by a comma. And then after we've constructed this string, we reset it to a substring that is the beginning of the line to the end of the line minus 1, which gets rid of the last comma that we put in, since we don't want the list to end in a comma. And then we could create a SQL statement that is delete from DVDs, where DVD ID n, and then a parent, and this delete list that we've constructed, and an end parent. So this statement will basically delete all the values that we have in this delete list. And this shows the basic structure of the MySQL delete statement, which is delete from table name where condition. And in this case, the condition we're using is an n with a list of DVD ID values. So once this SQL has been constructed, I pop up a message box that says, do you really want to delete these? And I convert the number of deleted items selected to string and then say items. And this has 3 buttons on it, a yes, a no, and a cancel, and then a message box icon of a question mark. So basically this is a safety mark that says make sure the user really wants to delete these, because once he says yes, it's all over, they're gone. And if he does say yes, the dialog result we get returned from the message box is dialog result.yes. So we do a try and create a command object that is this SQL delete statement that we've created, and then do an execute non-query to actually do deletes. And then we call this pop listing from SQL a second time, and we use the listing SQL that's been saved to the memory variable to populate it, because obviously we don't want to do a pop listing using the list of deleted items. That'd just be an empty set, we wouldn't see anything. In fact, we want to see the reverse of that. So we basically rerun the same command we got for clicking on the tree view, but when we run it again, the deleted items will be missing because they're no longer in the database. And of course we put this in a try catch where we get a MySQL exception if the statements fail, and pop up a message box that said we failed to delete this, and print out the statement as to why we failed to delete it. Well, I created several dummy records for deleting, since we don't want to delete actual data, and I put them in TV03. So if we list this out, we see dummy 01 through dummy 10. And if I select, say, the first 3 of these and then select delete selected, it pops up our message box that says, do we really want to delete these 3 items? And if I say yes, you see the 3 items immediately disappear because we re-execute the same command we executed when we clicked on this tree view item. We'd saved it to memory and then re-executed it. And now if I say just 1 item, which is always good to test the boundaries of those things, and press delete, it says, do I want to delete this 1 item? I say yes, and I delete it. And it's also good to test whether if we select it, if it says you have to select an item to be deleted, and it does. And say I select all these and say select delete and say no, and it doesn't delete anything. But if I say yes, once again all the dummy records deleted. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a lot, and I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe.